Okay, so you're thinking about making a move right here to Seattle, Washington, but before you do, you want to learn everything that you can about the pros as well as the cons about living right here in the Emerald City. Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to cover. I'm going to go over the top 5 pros and, more importantly, the top 5 cons. And I'll just say, if you can't handle even one of these cons, Seattle might not be the best fit for you. So if you're ready to learn more about what makes this place such an awesome place to live, but also maybe not so awesome place to live, stick around because we're getting after it right now. Okay, pro number 1 about living here in Seattle is got to be the local economy. Especially if you're in the tech industry, you're gonna have plentiful options right here in Seattle, right in our own backyard of options to work. So let me just name a few of these giant tech companies that we have right here in Seattle. We have Amazon, we have Microsoft, we have Google, Nintendo, Expedia Group, Apple, Cisco, F5 Networks, Facebook, Oracle, to name a few. Now, let's say maybe you aren't in the tech industry, maybe you're in the aerospace field. Boeing provides over 60,000 jobs right here in the state of Washington. So plentiful employment opportunities right in our own backyard, especially, like I was saying, in the tech industry. We're actually down right now in South Lake Union. We're right outside the Amazon spheres here. Really cool office building, but Amazon takes up a pretty large footprint down here in the South Lake Union area. Also, Google has some office space down here as well, but just a ton of opportunity for you in the tech industry right here in Seattle, the east side over in Bellevue and Redmond as well. So plenty of opportunity for you right here in Seattle. Okay, pro number 2, and this is probably my favorite pro about living here in Seattle, is just the scenic beauty that we get to enjoy on a daily basis living here. Now, if you've seen any television shows or movies that are based in Seattle, you know what I'm talking about. But I will say, until you've been here in person and can see it with your own eyes, the TV, the movie screen just doesn't do it any justice. If you enjoy water views, mountain views, then Seattle's probably gonna be an excellent choice for you. So Seattle's pretty much just surrounded by water on the east side, the west side, mountain ranges everywhere. So we are in basically downtown Seattle right now. We're at the Olympic Sculpture Park here, right on the water. Behind me here is the Puget Sound, big body of water that feeds into the Pacific Ocean. And great views. You have boats coming in, ferries. Just beyond that, probably can't really see it very well today. The clouds are kind of covering the mountain range, but that's the Olympic mountain range out to the west of Seattle here. If we head east, so the other way, we run into Lake Washington, which is a giant lake, freshwater, boating activities, summer, lots of beautiful homes on the lake, but just a huge lake right there, just to the east of Seattle. And if you go beyond that, there's Lake Sammamish, another really large lake, beautiful lake views, homes as well. And then just beyond that, a little bit further east, you have the Cascade mountain range, which separates the western side of Washington from the eastern side of Washington, but beautiful views of the Cascade mountain range. And if you are looking for even more mountains, you can go down a little bit further south, and the largest mountain in the state is Mount Rainier. And several communities and suburbs here of Seattle have great mountain views of Mount Rainier just because it's so massive, it's so big. You can see it from pretty much everywhere in the state. So if you're into scenery, Seattle has you covered in that department. Like I said, water views, mountain views galore, and we got you covered when it comes to that department. Okay, pro number 3 about living here in Seattle is there's no state income tax for the state of Washington. Now, this is pretty big when it comes to helping offset that higher cost of living that we have here. We'll get into that a little bit later in the video, but no state income tax is pretty big, especially if you're coming from a state where you are paying state income tax. Now, I will say we do have a sales tax, which comes out to be about 10%. And, the state gets their money in other ways, so you might pay a little bit higher for other things like a sales tax or excise tax. And, so they get their money in other spots, but it's pretty nice that you're not going to be paying any kind of income tax living here anywhere in the state of Washington. So pro number 3, you're gonna keep a little bit more money in your pocket. Okay, pro number 4 for living here in Seattle is the year-round access to nature and just outdoor activities. If you are an outdoor type of person, Seattle is going to be the place for you. Now, we have a ton of hiking trails. I mean, like miles and miles upon miles of hiking trails here in the Pacific Northwest. Outdoor activities year-round. If you're into skiing, snowboarding, we have several different areas where you can go and do that sort of thing. If you're into sports, we have Seahawks. They play right downtown Seattle at Lumen Field. We have T-Mobile Park. If you're a baseball fan, you can go catch a baseball game. Great outdoor activities. Like I said, we have the winter sports, hiking, all of that. There's just a ton of stuff to do outside. During the summertime, even more, of course. You have all of the water, the lake activities. If you're into boating, water skiing, wakeboarding, stuff like that, then you're gonna have plenty of opportunity to do that around here. And hey, if you're a dog owner, here, let me introduce you to somebody here real quick. So this is my little guy. This is Griffin. Griffin is almost 3 years old. He's a cockapoo. He's actually our family's COVID dog. We got him and named him Griffin. And my kids are huge Harry Potter fans, which, that's Gryffindor, if you're familiar with that series. And that's where Griffin gets his name. But, if you're a dog owner and you want to get out and go for runs, go to dog parks, stuff like that, you have all of that available to you right here in Seattle. I mean, the amount of dog parks, and it's a very dog-friendly city. So, all around the Puget Sound, very dog-friendly. So if you're a dog lover, this is gonna be the spot for you. Okay, pro number 5 about living right here in Seattle is the moderate climate that we get to enjoy here. During the summer months, it never really gets too warm, and in the winter months, it never gets too cold. Now, if we're talking about like average temperature swings and what we're looking at here in the winter, let's say the coldest parts of winter, January, February, the average temperature is usually about, mid to upper 40s. That's typically what you're gonna get. So nothing too cold. We do go through, a couple stretches throughout the winter where we might get sub-freezing temperatures for a week or a week and a half or so, but that's pretty rare. Usually maybe once or twice per winter tops. We don't get a lot of snow. Again, maybe once or twice a year, we might get a little bit of an accumulation of snow. And what makes it tough here in Seattle when we do get snow is that it just does tend to shut everything down. We don't have the snow plows and the ability to get all these streets plowed and sanded or salted and ready to drive on. And in Seattle, the streets are pretty hilly. The topography of the land around here is pretty hilly. So when it gets cold and icy, it makes it really tough to get around. So kind of a bummer, but we don't see that too often. But like I said, once or twice a year. And then during the summertime, usually you're in the hottest parts of summer, July, August, we're probably looking mid 70s. We do have some stretches where we'll have a week or so of 90-degree plus weather. You know, once in a while it'll break triple digits and get up into the hundreds, but that's pretty rare. And, you know, like I said, just a real moderate climate here in the Seattle area, which is comfortable and also really helps out with the utility bills and keeping those low. You know, nationwide, our utility costs are going to be below the nation average because we're never really blaring that air conditioning, and the furnace isn't usually working overtime to try to heat the house. You know, just kind of nice and moderate, even keel climate, which makes it really comfortable for, you know, residents of the Seattle area. Now, I'll throw in a bonus pro of living here in the Seattle area, and this is probably one of my wife's favorite things about living here, is, you know, we don't have a whole lot of like scary bugs or snakes that you have to worry about. You know, we, on the eastern side of the state, yes, you know, there's some more dangerous snakes, venomous snakes, and, you know, other insects that you kind of got to pay attention to and watch out for. But on the western side of the state, we don't really have anything you have to worry about. You know, there's like maybe a couple spiders that are pretty venomous that might, you know, make you, you know, ruin your day if you get bit by them. But for the most part, there's nothing that's going to kill you if it bites you here in the western side of the state of Washington. So just kind of a nice peace of mind type thing. You know, like I said, just kind of a quick bonus pro for you living here in the Seattle area. Okay, let's switch it up and start talking about the cons of living in Seattle. Now, I realize that I ended our list of pros by talking about the weather in Seattle, but I'm gonna begin our list of cons by talking about the weather in Seattle. Now, the weather, it's mild, it's, you know, it's not too cold, it's not too warm. That's the great thing about it here. But the con that I want to talk to you about is, you know, something that you probably already know, but, you know, we do get quite a bit of rain. And if we're talking about like an annual rainfall total, Seattle is probably not even in the top 20 when we're talking about like major cities in the United States. But, you know, what we do have is the number of rainy days that we actually get. And it's, you know, just light drizzle, kind of like what it's doing right now. You know, just kind of a light rain. It's nothing too heavy, but we do get a lot of days with these light rain where it just kind of everything gets wet, and, you know, you don't even really need an umbrella actually, you know, to go out and about. Most Seattleites don't even own umbrellas, but, you know, it's personal choice, personal preference, of course. And, you know, the weather, it's those times of year, usually around late October, early November, it starts to get pretty nasty. You know, the sun, you don't see a whole lot of it during the winter, but come May, early June, it starts to get beautiful here, and it's really the most incredible part of the world that you could live in. But during those winter months, I will say it gets pretty bad with the amount of just kind of dreary weather that we get. And, you know, what I think is even worse than the rain actually is just the amount of daylight that we actually get here in the state of Washington, you know, city of Seattle. And, you know, usually it starts to get dark around 4. Like right now it is 3:50, so 10 minutes to 4 p.m. and it's already starting to get dark out. And, you know, it's tough because you just don't have much daylight. Sometimes you'll see like 8 or 9 hours of daylight throughout these winter days, which, you know, the rain is one thing, but for me, my biggest thing is the lack of daylight. And, you know, you don't see the sun very often and for very long in the wintertime. So something that you'll definitely need to know about, something you'll need to get used to. You know, a lot of people are susceptible to, you know, seasonal affective disorder or, you know, depression from lack of sunlight. You know, that if that's a thing for you, then maybe, you know, getting some vitamin D supplements, you know, would probably be a good idea for you. But yeah, just know that there is limited sun and quite a bit more rain in the winter months. But if you can stick those out and hang on until the summer months, you know, we have 7-8 months of really, really awesome, perfect weather that I think you're gonna love. Okay, con number 2 about living in Seattle is the traffic that you have to deal with on a daily basis. If you are traveling during rush hour periods of commuting, it's pretty rough all the way around Seattle. No matter if you're on the west side in Seattle, if you're on the east side in Bellevue or Redmond, it is just tough to get around. And there's a couple different reasons for that. One being just the amount of people that live here. It's an awesome place to live. People want to live here, so we do have quite a few people driving around. But another reason why traffic is so bad is just the way the geography is in the Seattle area. So you'll see, if you look on a map, Seattle is surrounded by water on the east and west side. And that makes it a little bit difficult to commute or get around when you're traveling, east to west. And there's only a few different parts where you can get over Lake Washington. That's the big body of water that separates the west side of Seattle to the east side, which is Redmond, Bellevue, which creates a lot of, choke points or bottleneck areas where getting back and forth can be a little bit tough. So it's really a difficult thing that people in Seattle deal with if you're traveling through those, the peak commuting times, which makes it extra tough. And there's really no way around it. But things are going to get better, and one of those things that's going to make it better is right behind me here. This is the light rail station. We're actually up at the North Gate light rail station, and Seattle over the last several years has worked on putting in this light rail system to go through the Puget Sound area. And it's going to go from Seattle all the way up to Linwood eventually, and then it's going to run over to the east side through Bellevue up into Redmond, and it's really going to help ease a lot of that traffic, a lot of that congestion. Like I said, we're at the North Gate station right now. Currently, this is the northernmost stop that's open and running, but it's going to go all the way up to Linwood, and it's really going to just help cut down on traffic. Hopefully it will put less cars on the road, and it'll make you just, your ability to get into downtown Seattle is going to be so much easier and quicker. For example, the estimated commute time from Linwood to get into downtown Seattle, I believe it's going to be about 28 minutes to make that commute. So pretty good when you factor or compare that to traveling by vehicle, by your own car. It's probably going to take you an hour or more during those rush hour times. So really going to help out with that. The Linwood station, so the northernmost, where it's going to be completed, that should be open in summer or fall of this year of 2024. So we'll be up and running, good to go, and it's going to help ease a lot of that congestion around here. So con number 2 is just the horrible traffic that we have to deal with. Okay, con number 3 about living in Seattle is the amount of homelessness that is taking place right now in the Seattle area. And it's gotten extra bad over the last, I'd say, 5 years or so. It just really has increased. The evidence of the homeless population in the downtown kind of urban areas is really, really starting to get out of hand. Now, I've lived in Seattle my whole life. I can always remember, going to downtown, being in Seattle, you would see homeless people, just like any other major metropolitan city. You're gonna see a homeless issue anywhere you go. But in Seattle, it's gotten particularly bad. And, it's really to the point where, I have 2 young kids, and I try to stay away from downtown Seattle just because of the homeless issue. And it's so evident in the streets. They have homeless encampments, tents set up right on the sidewalk. There's displays of drug use and people going to the bathroom. Sometimes there's just stuff that you don't want to expose myself or especially my 2 young kids to. So it's kind of sad because I really love downtown Seattle. It's beautiful, but for the most part, I avoid it unless I absolutely have to go down there. And hopefully will get better. You know, it's a really big issue. Nationwide, it's an issue, but extra bad here in Seattle. I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, our high cost of living, the high cost of housing, the lack of any kind of affordable housing definitely plays a major role in contributing to this homelessness crisis that we're experiencing now. Hopefully it'll get better. I don't see it getting better anytime soon, but you know, we'll just, you know, have to deal with it in the meantime, and hopefully there's a solution around the corner soon. Okay, con number 4 about living here in the Seattle area is a little known phenomenon that you might not have heard about before, but it's called the Seattle freeze. And what that means is people that live here in Seattle, especially the locals, the people that are born and raised in Seattle, are just a little bit reserved, I guess. I wouldn't say rude, but they are just less inclined to say hi to a stranger on the streets, or just go out of their way to make a friendship with somebody, or, you know, ask you to go hang out, basically. And that's pretty common, what you're gonna see here in Seattle. You know, we do have a lot of transplants here to the area, so that's changing. I'd say the freeze is starting to thaw a little bit, but for the most part, for those local, born and raised, hardcore Seattleites, they are probably not going to be the friendliest bunch to you, which, you know, like I said, they're not going to be rude, but they just aren't going to go out of their way to say hi, welcome you, invite you out into their circle of friends right away, at least. Eventually, yes, but, you know, it's just something that you should be aware of. And, you know, when talking about the Seattle freeze, don't worry, we would never freeze you. If you're looking to make a move here to the Seattle area, make sure you give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. Contact information's popping up right below on the screen here. We'd love to help you out. Give us a call, set up that 30-minute buyer presentation. We'll walk you through all the steps, everything that you need to know about making a smooth move right here to Seattle. So don't worry about the Seattle freeze. Like I said, it's starting to thaw, but you'll do just fine here. Okay, a major con of living in Seattle, and this one might end up being the biggest con about Seattle. It probably prevents most people from relocating to this area, calling Seattle home, and that is the high cost of living for Seattle, Washington. Now, there's a great resource, a great website that I usually look at when comparing the cost of living from Seattle to different areas, different parts of the country, and that website's bestplaces.net. And what they do is they give a national average of cost of living and breaks it down into certain categories. And, you know, when looking at Seattle versus the nation average, Seattle is about 58.1% higher overall for cost of living. And when we're talking about overall cost of living, that basically is housing, food and groceries, transportation, childcare, entertainment, stuff like that. So 58.1% higher than the national average to live here in Seattle. Now, the biggest part of that is going to be the housing. And if we break down the housing cost of living and look at that individually apart from the other ones, then housing is about, on the scale, according to bestplaces.net, is a 291.9, which is almost 200% higher than the national average. So that's where the biggest hit you're going to take is going to be in the housing. Houses are just more expensive here, and you know, the median home price in the Seattle area for a single family home is going to be right around $900,000. So probably quite a bit higher than what you're used to or where you're coming from. You know, unless you're coming from California. We do have a lot of people from California relocating up here, and you know, people in the Bay Area and LA. You're kind of used to those prices, but you know, if you're coming from the East Coast, Kentucky, somewhere like that, then it's really going to be a pretty big change of you know, prices for you here in Seattle. One thing that kind of helps out, and this is a small section of the overall cost, you know, the average, but you know, utilities are going to be a lot cheaper. Like I was talking about in the pros of Seattle, the moderate climate that we have, you know, your utilities are going to be quite a bit cheaper here in Seattle, which, you know, could end up saving you a couple $100 a month, depending on, you know, where you're coming from. But, you know, as far as the scale goes on the bestplaces.net website, Seattle checks in at a 68.8 or, you know, 69%. So about 31% below the national average for your utility costs. So that will help out a little bit, but you know, overall, you're going to be paying more living here, but chances are you're probably going to be making a little bit more money by coming here. You know, maybe you're taking a job at one of the tech companies, or, you know, getting, you know, relocated to the Seattle area for job purposes. Hopefully you're making more money in doing so to help offset some of those costs. And, you know, if you are getting that transfer or relocating, making that move here to Seattle, we'd love to help you out. Give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. Our contact information's popping up on the screen right now. Give us a call. We'd love to help you make that smooth move right here to Seattle. And you know, if you want to learn even more about living in Seattle and hanging out and, you know, what there is to do, click on this playlist that's popping up right here. These are the best videos available right now on YouTube about what it's like to live in Seattle. So check those out, and we'll see you on the next one. See ya. Bye.